The snowflakes drifted gently from the sky, their soft glow reflecting the warmth of the home you and Bakugo had built. Christmas was just around the corner, and the air buzzed with excitement. Not only because of the holiday, but also because it was your child's first Christmas, grasping the magic of it. At 4 years old, your little one's eyes were full of wonder and excitement, so bright it was enough to fill even the gruffest of souls. The living room was filled with scattered wrapping paper, half-decorated ornaments on the tree, and very excited. A child sat next to you. Sitting by the fireplace, Bakugo, as usual, had a grumpy expression as he fumbled with the decorations, but his eyes softened when he looked at your little one. Despite his rough exterior, there was no denying the warmth he felt in the presence of his family. "Dad, when's Santa coming?" your baby asked, tugging at Bakugo's sleeve, their little face alight with curiosity. He growled under his breath. "Santa's not real, kid," he muttered, rubbing the back of his neck. "Your old man's the one that handles the gifts." You were watching the scene from the kitchen, chuckling quietly to yourself as you prepared the holiday dinner. "Oh, come on, Bakugo," you called out, your voice warm. "You can't ruin the Christmas magic for them." Bakugo shot you a sideways glance, grumbling about not arguing, and how magic's for idiots. "You're just mad because you didn't get to experience the fun when you were a kiddo," you teased, walking towards them. "So, how about we make this little one more special with some Christmas magic?" Bakugo raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" You smiled, turning towards him with a mischievous glint in your eye. "I think it's time for you to dress up as Santa Claus." Bakugo's eyes widened in disbelief. "What the hell?" "You heard me," you said, crossing your arms over your chest as he leaned against the counter. "We've already got the costume and everything. It'll be so fun, and it will make him so happy." Bakugo shook his head as if he was trying to clear the thoughts. "There is no way I'm putting on some ridiculous shit and prancing around like a fool for some kid." "It's your kid. Come on, it'll just be for a while," you persisted, walking over to him with the Santa hat in hand. "We'll keep it low-key. I'm not asking you to do anything crazy, just pretend to be Santa for a couple hours." Bakugo let out a heavy sigh, running a hand through his spiky blonde hair. "This is stupid." But as he looked over at his child, who was practically bouncing off the walls with excitement at the mention of Santa, Bakugo's tough exterior softened. He was such a softie when it came to family. "Fine," he grumbled, "but you owe me big time for this." You couldn't help the grin that spread on your face. "Deal." After a few minutes of him reluctantly getting dressed in a red suit, complete with a fluffy white beard, Bakugo stood before you with a scowl on his face. His arms crossed stubbornly. His usual intimidating presence was dulled by the ridiculousness of the costume, and you had to bite back your lip to hold back the laugh. "Are you seriously going to laugh?" Bakugo snapped, clearly already annoyed. No, you said quickly, trying to stifle your amusement. "You look great, Suki. Really, very Santa-like." Your child hearing the exchange dashed into the room with wide eyes. "Santa!" they shouted, running into Bakugo with excitement. The joy on their face made everything worth it, and even Bakugo couldn't help but soften as he knelt down to meet their eager gaze. Yeah, I'm Santa," Bakugo grumbled, rolling his eyes as he adjusted the hat to keep it from slipping off. "What do you want for Christmas, kid?" The little one paused, thinking for a moment. "A toy fire truck and cookies for Santa. Can I give cookies, Daddy?" The way they beamed at him was enough to melt his heart, and Bakugo grunted in response, a faint blush creeping up on his neck. "Fire truck? Yeah, I'll get you one, and yeah, cookies are fine too, I guess," Bakugo grumbled. Your child didn't hesitate, running to the kitchen to grab a plate of cookies they'd already set out for Santa. You watched the entire interaction with a fond smile, admiring how your husband, the most stubborn and fierce person you knew, was letting your son reduce him to putty in his hands. As the evening went on, the two of you worked together to prepare dinner. Bakugo still had his Santa suit on, though he had started to get a little more into the role. He managed to give a few heart-hearted chuckles, especially when your child ran up asking if he could sit on Santa's lap. The dinner table was full of laughter, the warmth of the fire crackling in the background. All was settled in to enjoy the meal. Bakugo, despite his grumbling, couldn't help but sneak little love glances at your child. Pride and love ran all over his face. Next year, Bakugo said, his voice softer than usual, I'll make sure they don't catch on to the whole Santa thing, but this wasn't the worst thing I've done. You smile, resting your hands on his. I think they'll remember this for the rest of their life. Yeah, Bakugo said, a smile tugging at his lips. I'm not doing it again, though. He chuckled, knowing he would do the same thing next year. The night ended with your little one nestled in bed, excited for presents that they would wake up in the morning for. Bakugo, still in his Santa suit, sat beside you on the couch, his arm around you as you both reflected on the joy of the evening. For all his gruffness, Bakugo had a heart full of love for his family. It wasn't always easy to show it, but in moments like these where he could be with you and your child, every bit of it and every bit of stubbornness was worth it. As the snow began to fall outside, you staggered into Bakugo's side. Merry Christmas, you whispered. Yeah, Merry Christmas, he muttered, squeezing you tighter. The night was still quiet. The soft sound of snow gently falling against the windows inside the cozy little home. The glow of the Christmas lights twinkled across the room, casting small festive hue across the walls. The tree was beautifully decorated, and the fireplace crackled with a soothing rhythm. Everything felt perfect, just like the holiday season should be. After putting your little one to bed, the house seemed to settle into a peaceful stillness. You and Bakugo, however, were far from ready for the night to end. The chaotic energy had been filled with nothing but quietness. Now with your son fast asleep, you had the moment of quiet you both needed. Bakugo sat on the couch, his body slightly leaned, looking like a mountain of muscle. The frustration, though tonight his usual scowl, seemed to soften that. You sat next to him, legs stretched out across the couch, the holiday fatigue creeping up into you as you let out a sigh of relief. You did good today, you said, your voice soft as you looked back at him with a gentle smile. Bakugo grunted, his eyes looking over to you. Yeah, well, like I said, wasn't the worst thing I've ever done, he muttered, though there was a hint of pride in his voice. You chuckled, your hand casually brushing against his. I think you made a pretty good Santa, you teased, nudging him lightly in the shoulder. Bakugo rolled his eyes, though his lips twitched up in the corners. Don't get used to it, he grumbled, but he clearly wasn't really upset. Without warning, you leaned in closer, resting your head on his shoulder. You could feel the tension in his body melt away from your touch. He wasn't a man who often showed his affection, you could say, much, but he didn't really show how much he appreciated the quiet moments, but you knew him well enough to see the little things. The way how his arms subtly wrapped around your waist, or how his fingers brushed against yours when he thought you weren't paying attention. The warmth of the fire reflected in his eyes, and he looked down at you, his face softening even more, slowly, almost cautiously. He cupped your cheek in his large hand, his thumb gently grazing your skin. Stop trying to make me all soft, he mumbled, but his voice was low and tender. You could hear the faintest unfound affection in it. You smiled, your heart swelling at his rare admission. Who says you're not already soft? Bakugo didn't respond to that. He leaned down and kissed you. The kiss wasn't rushed or intense, but it was sweet and slow, like he had all the time in the world, just for this. His lips were warm against your own. His touch was soft, a complete contrast to the usual fiery and patient Bakugo you knew. It was as if the moment was nothing else but the two of you, wrapped in the stillness of the night. You pulled back, your lips lingering near his. You both caught your breath. This is nice, you whispered. Yeah, he murmured, his voice resting against yours. It's nice, He leans in with his forehead. The sound of the snowstorm outside seemed to fade away, leaving the two of you in the warmth of your room. You could hear his heart beating softly as you both just sat there, enjoying the quiet moment you had created. It was moments like these that made everything worth it. The rush of being parents, the busyness of the holiday season, all of it. But as you shared this peaceful moment, a tiny, sleepy voice broke the stillness. "Mommy?" came a soft call from the hallway, making you both freeze. Your heart skipped a beat. Bakugo pulled back quickly, his eyes wide in surprise. "Shit," he whispered under his breath, quickly straightening up as if trying to look more Santa-like. In an instant, you sat up straight too, glancing towards the hallway with a nervous smile. Your son, still rubbing his eyes, wandered into the living room, blinking. He looked at the both of you with a confused expression. His eyes were half awake, but you can tell they weren't fully ready to go back to bed yet. "Mommy?" your little one mumbled, looking at you with sleepy eyes. "I don't want to go to bed. I want to see you," he spoke, talking over himself. You smiled, doing your best to cover the awkward tension. "Hey, sweetheart. What's wrong? Why are you up?" you asked, trying to sound casual, even though you were flustered because your son had just caught you kissing Santa Claus. Your son blinked and then glanced at Bakugou, who was still in his Santa suit. That was clear from the way he was sitting. He hadn't quite anticipated being caught in the moment. "Santa?" your child asked, still groggy, clearly confused by what they were seeing. Bakugou started, looking between you and the little one. Not quite sure how to explain the scene. He coughed awkwardly and then tried to sound as authoritative as possible. Yeah, Santa's just, checking in on things." You fought back a laugh, then quickly looked down at your child, trying to steer the situation. "Santa just wanted to make sure you're still dreaming of cookies and presents, sweetie," you added, hoping to smooth over the confusion. Your son's eyes darted between you and Bakugou, the sleepiness still hanging in their expression. "But you kissed Santa," they said, furrowing their brows in clear confusion. You froze again, unsure of how the hell to respond to that. But Bakugou quickly took charge as he always did, scratching the back of his neck as he tried to brush it off. Santa's gotta give hugs and kisses, sometimes. Gotta make sure people are happy, right?" he said, trying to sound casual, but clearly uncomfortable with the explanation. Your son thought about it for a second, their little brows furrowing in concentration, but after a while they processed the information, then a long pause, and then gave a slow nod. "Okay," they said, their voice small but still full of the childish innocence. "Good night, Mommy. Good night, Santa." And with that, they turned and wandered back to their room, letting you both let out a collective sigh of relief. You glanced at Bakugou, who was still trying to adjust his Santa suit in a way that was less ridiculous. You couldn't help but laugh. "Well, that was better than expected." Bakugou grumbled, clearly still embarrassed. "I'm not doing that again." You chuckled, reaching out to gently squeeze his hand. "You did great, though, and I think they'll remember this Christmas for a long time." Bakugou huffed, but the smile tugging at his lips betrayed him. "Whatever, let's just get through the rest of tonight." You nodded, leaning into him to kiss him. Once more this time, so simple back on the cheek. "I love you, Santa." Bakugou shot you a playful glare, but he couldn't help the warmth in his eyes. Yeah, I love you too, YN. With that, you both settled back into the quiet peace of your home, the sound of the storm outside muffled by the joy of the moment. It was Christmas after all. There was no better time than all together.